Hey guys, and welcome back to the Outer Rim. I'm Gabe Green, and today, with the help of one of my fellow Outer Rim admins, we'll be talking about the latest episode of The Bad Batch. And this week it is James. What's up, man?
Nothing much. What's going on?
Not much. I got my Baby Yoda t-shirt, so I am
Yeah.
absolutely ready to talk about some Star Wars. This week it is episode 9 called Bounty Lost. And as always, if you'd rather listen to this in audio form, you can go over to our podcast feed that James and I host called Franchise Fatigue Podcast. We're putting up the audio versions of all the Bad Batch reviews on that feed. Again, that's a Franchise Fatigue Podcast. All right, so diving into this one, as I said, it's episode 9 called Bounty Lost. It was written by Matt Mishnovets. He's the original creator of the OG Bad Batch arc. He's also written a couple episodes in this show. He's also the story editor for the entire show. It was directed by Brad Rao and Nathaniel Villanueva. I keep getting him confused with Denis Villeneuve. So yeah, Brad Rao is the supervising director for the entire show. So this would be like if Dave Filoni stepped in and co-directed an episode in Clone Wars. Couple notes. Rena Owens, the original voice actress for Tan Wei, returns to for one line. Then she's off rather unceremoniously. Apparently I think she's voiced the character in like a couple video games or whatnot, but that was kind of funny and random. Usually they don't bother. They usually just go for one of their stable of voice actors that they have for these shows. So as far as the synopsis, after kidnapping Omega, Cad Bane rendezvous with Tan Wei on an abandoned cloning facility, but his day is complicated by Omega escaping into the facility and Fennec Shan showing up to take Omega on Nala Se's orders to keep her safe from Lama Su. Lots of fighting, hiding, and stalking ensues, but ultimately Omega escapes and is reunited with the Bad Batch. All right, James, what do you think?
I really like this episode a lot. Man, I'm like continuously impressed by this show's animation
Mm-hmm.
and just their like fog and cloud effects and their lighting and just everything in the last portion of this episode is just it's so gorgeous. And then in addition, like other benefits of like just this incredible animation is like I think the hand-to-hand fighting is really cool. I think there's a lot of weight to it. Uh it's just this is a good episode. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, the only way you would know this thing has a lower budget than Clone Wars is that there's not a lot of giant battles. Like, as far as animation quality, they haven't dipped at all.
Yeah.
And just particularly in creating a setting, the setting of the cloning facility is really striking. Just the grime and cracks over everything. The way the sound design makes it feel old and empty.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all very well done. As you mentioned, the fog offering lots of opportunities for bounty hunters to like loom menacingly
Yeah.
out of it. It's great.
Yeah.
So the big thing, well, there's a lot of things in this episode, but the big thing for me is like the we're getting more and more factions. And this is like a drum I've been beating in all these reviews. Is like I'm so glad like there's these various factions rising up, each one with their own interests. So, and I remember when we had Fennec Shan in like episode 4, and then Cad Bane showed up. I was kind of hoping that two different people hired them, but it was kind of unlikely. Now that was kind of confirmed that one's by Lama Su, the other's by Nala Se, and so it's just we're getting like more and more groups with their own interests trying to combating over Omega. Now Lama Su and the rest of the Kaminoans are trying to maintain relevance, but by actively undermining like active Imperial missions, like killing all the stormtroopers to get Omega so they can revamp the cloning program. Then Nala Se is working against Lama Su to try and keep Omega safe. Like there's a lot going on. Like if we could just get like some conflict between Admiral Rampart and Tarkin, I think like this show is going to be set. Just
I think that's going to be coming.
fighting.
Yeah. I think it's only a matter of time before we start getting that because Tarkin never goes too long without finding somebody
Yes.
to steal ideas from and discredit.
And where is Rampart in that board meeting on the Death Star?
Exactly.
Either he's dead or manning some radar tower in Alaska. So yeah, this one it brought me right back to season 2 of the Clone Wars, Rise of the Bounty Hunters. It's just the bounty hunters. They're awesome, aren't they, James?
Yeah, that's that's part of like what felt so good about this episode. It was like, remember when like we just had episodes of, hey, here's you kind of about Boba, but he's a kid, and so let's invent like we've got all the Empire Strikes Back ones, but just all of the invented bounty hunters for Clone Wars and stuff. They became like such fun characters, with Cad Bane being the obvious standout. Not like
Mm,
I think he's probably one of the coolest Star Wars characters, like live action animation, just across the board. He's
yeah.
gonna walk into the room, and you've got to be like Darth Vader to be cooler than him. Um,
I
and
mean,
so
he could give Darth Vader a fight. Like,
I believe it. And so like it's already like seeing him in the last episode was super cool. But like having him and just him and Toto immediately falling back into their old dynamics, and Seth Green is always fun.
why does he
Uh,
keep Toto around?
I have no idea, but it's fun. Uh,
That character could be so annoying, but there's just something so pure about him. He just
so
wants to
pure
do a
and
good
pitiful.
job. He just wants to do a good job. Like he's using his leg as a cane.
It's such a pathetic little image.
He tries so hard.
The thing that really got me was just him. Like he's not hovering, but he's just like sitting in the pilot seat, like a kid with his legs not even really able to dangle off. And whenever Cad Bane is calling him, he just kind of like scoots himself off the chair and plops down like a toddler.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Yes, Cad Bane, awesome. And we get Fennec Shan back. And I like that there's a kind of a consistent thread with Fennec. Is that she'll always go for the manipulation if she can. Well, she'll try to shoot you a lot too, but like remember in the Gunslinger where she tries to talk down Toro Calican, like appealing to his self interest and his own motivations. Here, she'll always go for the conversation with Omega first, trying to manipulate her. That was interesting, and
Yeah.
Omega just sees right through it now. Also,
At this point.
funny is Omega is applying those same manipulation tactics on Toto. Like she learned it, probably
learns.
learned it from Fennec Shand, and kind of pretending to be the friend, to just stab you in the back.
Yeah. And speaking of Omega, man, I continue to just really, really love her character a lot. There's so many points through this series where they could have like fallen into some annoying trope or something, and they don't, and they continue to develop her. And she like one of the risks you run with this with like a child character is that, well, you're never going to have the whole somebody captured them and now we've got to go rescue her. And like we technically did that episode, but I'm super emotionally invested in it.
Mm-hmm.
And the ending is just so sweet, like with when she's got like actual tears in her eyes and she's just confused. I like this is such a we're 9 episodes in and I'm like, I'm bought into this family unit. Like Wrecker, who like was kind of annoying to me, especially in the initial arc on Clone Wars. Like when he's down and like he's hugging her, and they have all their little moments throughout the episodes. I'm like, man, I love this. This is so nice.
Yeah, that balance of incredible competence but not overpowering her, it's very delicate, and they've managed through all kinds of scenarios to walk it. As you said, she's I think like uber resourceful. Like she's very resourceful. She can like she'll figure out how to survive, and but she's no match for the bounty hunter. She's constantly getting captured. She's only getting away because they're trying to kill each other. And she finds a way to get out because she keeps trying, and then at the end when she's safe, she does break down, like all the fears and the emotions of the like she's still feeling all that fear. She's just able to hold it down until the end.
And that balance that you're talking about, like I think that's really important for this character, and what's making her so endearing is that she's not this constant obstacle, that's getting everybody like getting in the way, but she's also not overpowered. They're not really going the whole, oh, she knew exactly what we needed and she did everything right, and then we won. It's, she's having to learn how to shoot the bow in that one episode, and she's all over the place because she doesn't have arm strength. And she's sneaking around like in the one with the baby Rancor, but she gets caught. You think, oh, she's gonna go and she's gonna win the day, and she is able to pull the Rancor out, but it's not this perfect execution. And so here, she's kind of able to slip away, but again, it would never have happened this way where it's a one-on-one thing, and she's having to rely on the fact that you've got these bounty hunters consistently knocking each other out and throwing each other over the sides. And it's just she's able to realistically operate, I think.
Yeah, and it's only happening because they underestimate her because she's a child. Like they would treat an adult differently, and they would be much more careful. But she's just a kid, like, so she's able to use that to her advantage. Yeah, and here we learn kind of the secret of what Omega is. Like, this is something they've been teasing since episode 1. Like, there's some kind of mystery, and the answer here is that she is essentially a Generation 1 or exact copy, minus being female, of Jango Fett. And so this brings us back to the episode ARC Troopers, which I know that was one of the ones that was shuffled around. I think it's season 3-ish. If you did chronologically, I have no idea what the release order was because that was screwed up. I think it's season 3, but like where they're talking about how. No, where's that episode? That's the episode where Ventress goes to steal Jango Fett's DNA. But was that the one where they mentioned how it was starting to degrade, or was that a different one?
I think so. I think it's that episode.
Yeah. Well, either way, like in Clone Wars, they mentioned that Jango's DNA was starting to degrade, and so you kind of wonder, like, was Omega, I'm assuming Omega was created out of either the fear that the DNA might be stolen or that it's degrading, so we have to kind of reboot the program, and. That raises some interesting questions. Like, also, I love that Boba was codenamed Alpha. She's codenamed Omega, like Alpha and Omega, like the first and the last. Kind of almost biblical language going on there. But like, so they are brother and sister essentially. I mean, technically they all are, and Boba has shown that he does not care about, like, that doesn't mean anything to him. But, you wonder, like, a completely unaltered clone aging at the same pace as him, or is she aging? I mean,
that was a question I was going to ask. Have I just missed that and that's been said, or is she aging as Boba has? And so she's just kind of been around as long as he has.
I just said that, but I didn't think about that. Like, maybe when they created, she seems a bit younger than Boba. Yeah, she's definitely younger than Boba. But yeah, so is she 10, 12 years old? I'm assuming so. Like, if she's truly a Generation 1 unaltered clone, like, the rules they established would have been that she's aging naturally, which would explain why Nala Se is emotionally attached to her. She's been around for 12 years.
And that's one of the threads that I'm most interested in, is to really start to humanize, Kaminoanize Nala Se, just like really flesh her out. And maybe, like, for everybody else, there's all of these varying political reasons, like desire for relevance after, like, being the most important faction ever for the entirety of a war, to being soon to be this obscure facility that is no longer needed. So there's all these political things going on. But it will be interesting to see if for Nala Se it is just, I raised this thing. Like, we knew the explicit purpose we were doing this for, but I was the one who had to be there, basically be a mother to her almost. And so having that emotional involvement within all of the threads being tangled could also be really interesting.
A little heartbreaking touch I noticed, that the first instinct Omega has when she sees Tanway shot is to run over and help her. The person who was there to bring her back to kill her. Like she clearly views, maybe not a family, at least, like, coworkers and friends. Like, she has an attachment to the Kaminoans that they clearly do not have for her. Like that could be a really heartbreaking scene later on.
And it's so crazy like what the show like oh it was really begun in the Clone Wars is, you know, we don't really know hardly anything about the Kaminoans. And then as these shows go on, you're like, dang, these people are shady. Like I thought they were just like, oh, you know, we got hired to do this, so we did it. And now to see like that this they're just another political entity that's like just willing to do the most morally uh horrific acts behind the scenes. It's like, well,
You,
didn't know
you,
that about you.
you know what would be a cool ending for the series is them teaming up with Rex and maybe some other clones and going back to burn Camino to the ground, to stop. Like, oh, they're starting another clone program. We have to like give it a like rebellion motivation of we
Mm.
have to stop this new program, but also like it's all coming back to roost on these people for playing God. Like all their creation, very Frankenstein, like their creations are coming back to destroy them. Like that, I think that would be really cool and thematically interesting. Also emotional for these characters because in that episode, our ARC troopers they talk about like this is our home. Like the Confederacy's coming to our home and we're gonna kick their butts for it. And so like that turning that around and like that feels really cool to me.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, Camino has just got such a presence now in all of Star Wars. Like it is so um, developed and cemented, you know, that I feel like if you're looking for a big climactic moment for your series, like a destruction of a place like Camino would carry a lot of weight.
Mm-hmm. I imagine a scene where like Lama Su calling Tarkin like, we need help, we're under attack. He's like, oh, you're no longer relevant to the Empire. See you
Yeah.
later. Yeah. So that's the thing about this episode is on the surface, and that's like what this entire show is like on the surface. Oh, it's just like it's a pretty fun action episode, a lot of suspense. It's very small, just three characters. We barely even see the Bad Batch, but there's so much food for thought and stuff happening under the surface. That's what's happening with this entire show, and I love it. I love that.
That's what I remember on the last, I forget the specific episode. I think it was episode 3 that I was on last of the show. And what I was finding so much fun about it was like the fact that like it has that immediate kind of like, oh, that was fun. But then you look on like whether it's our group or anywhere, just there's so much speculation going on. And I keep seeing more and more people like whenever the episode drops, you see more people like, oh, I'm more hyped for this than X, Y, or Z. Like I'm ready
Hmm.
to be given that extra little crumb to try to piece things together.
Yeah, and there's a I totally blanked on what I was saying. um, yeah, so there's these little connections to the sequels that are pretty cool. Like the I don't know what they call the vats, the cloning vats they have, with that really sickly green glow.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And there's a really lovely quiet moment where Omega kind of goes up and puts her hand against it, just looking at it, like kind of, I guess, reckoning with her nature as this artificial
Yeah.
clone. And at the end, we see where she's talking to Hunter. She's like, I don't want to end up as an experiment in a tube. That fear of as a clone, not having like, do you have human rights when you're this you're created by by mad scientists like that, like, and just and people who will create you and cast you off, or you might just end up with this forgotten thing in a vat somewhere that no one cares about. Like, it's a kind of really interesting existential question and kind of terrifying.
Yeah, and you know, you think about like the Bad Batch, you know, they've fought for years at this point, and they like most clones, you know, they've kind of come to terms with it. Like they're very aware of their nature. And you have the episodes here and there throughout the Clone Wars, some of the best ones of like the clones reckoning with that and not being okay with it, like the Deserter. Um, but for the clones who stuck around, they to a large extent they're at peace with their nature and what they were designed for. Um, but it seems, she seems to have been raised, by Lana Say, and you don't know how much that's how. I mean, clearly she's not aware of the purpose of her creation and what's going on. So she's mentally developed as a child, and so for a child to be confronted with this, like these vats of castaway things, and to now have to, it's fortunate that she's surrounded by people like the Batch who are going to be able to, I'm sure for the rest of the season, be able to help her work through what she is.
Mm-hmm. It was interesting that they resolved the conflict of Omega being captured so fast, because I was happening at the mid-season finale. I kind of assumed that this was going to be the conflict going forward for the rest of the show, but nope, she's back. It's like I don't know what the show's going to be after this. I have ideas and hopes, but it's totally up in the air. And one last thing, I think episodes like this are really illustrating why this show is different, is like fundamentally different than Mando. Like there's been a lot of comparisons. Oh, these outcast taking in a child and being hunted across the galaxy by the Empire. Like there are those parallels, but one big difference is like you'll at least in the first two seasons you can't imagine an episode that's just Baby Yoda. Like Baby Yoda, he's the best. He's adorable. He's wonderful. He's on my shirt, but. Like he's mainly a MacGuffin and something you can cut to for adorable reaction shots. Like you can't. And so with this show, you have Omega. She can be separate from the Bad Batch and then only have like 3 very short scenes, and it works. Like she's completely her own her own character and can carry the show if need be for short amounts of time. Like there's definitely a very different dynamics going on that I think, at least for me. The comparisons to the Bad Batch are like the comparisons between A New Hope and The Force Awakens. Like, yes, you can name plot and certain construction elements that are similar, but all the things I actually love about them are different. Like, I don't care about the plot. Like, it's the story, the characters, the themes. There's very little crossover in that regard.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to mention before you head out?
No, I think I'm good.
All right. So that was episode 9, Bounty Lost of the Bad Batch. Again, if you want to listen to the audio versions, head over to our podcast, Franchise Fatigue Podcast. If you want to talk with us more about Star Wars, you can join us in the Outer Rim, a Star Wars group on Facebook. It's dedicated to positive and constructive Star Wars discussion. You can find obviously subscribe to the channel, like the video, all that stuff. Yeah, that's all. And we will see you next week with episode 10. See you later.